Raising Wealth is the podcast where parents talk honestly about money. How do you take a financial risk when you have kids depending on you? How do you build wealth while actually being present as a parent? What do you teach your kids about money? Each week, we sit down with entrepreneurs, creators, and business leaders who are parents. And we ask them everything: their first job, their biggest money mistake, how they approach finances with their family, and the trade-offs they've made or refused to make. This is Raising Wealth, Money Moves for Parents, powered by Advertising Week and Tiny Organics. So today we're sitting down with Kim Kreuzberger, founder and CEO of Pivot Projects, a consultancy working with some of the biggest names in lifestyle and consumer brands. Kim has built her career across multiple roles. She's a board member for Cravings by Chrissy Teigen and Wise Beauty by Molly Sims, a venture partner at Hannah Gray VC, and an investor and advisor to multiple consumer brands. Before launching Pivot Projects, she was chief revenue officer at Goop and held leadership roles at InStyle and Condé Nast. She's also a mom, and we're excited to hear her honest perspective on building wealth as an entrepreneur and investor, navigating risk as a parent, and what it takes to create financial freedom on your own terms. Kim, we're so excited to be chatting with you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. I'm really excited for both of you, the business, and what we're going to dive into.
Fantastic. So you've built an incredible portfolio career: founder, consultant, board member, investor, venture partner. Walk us through how you went from Condé Nast to building this for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of hustle, but I had a long career in publishing. I had the opportunity to join Goop in early 2015 when it was basically known as just a newsletter. I came in early. We worked hard for 5 years. We went 0 to 100 million. We really built something we were all really proud of. Gwyneth was an incredible boss. I feel really grateful for that experience. But I think that's where I got my entrepreneur chops, really building something out of nothing. And then from there is when I left to decide to do my own business, Pivot Projects. I started helping celebrities with commercial strategy, helping them really build go-to-market, brand decks, financial modeling, really putting together the priority revenue streams. And after that, after a few years of doing that, I felt like I built a business that was heavily weighing on just me. And so I kind of pivoted the model so that we could rep consumer brands and help them work with talent in addition to helping them scale their social handles and then build experiential. So we have those two other muscles, which keeps the business kind of differentiated from traditional influencer agencies.
Was there a specific moment in time that gave you that confidence to go from a job working for someone else, even though you were, really pivotal in building it, but making the leap into entrepreneurship?
I think it really, I think for me, it did come down to earnings, like really year over year running a revenue division. And you're kind of always subjected to whatever the leadership team deems your package. And, I was driving significant revenue, and not in a bad way, but as a business level up, the structures have to change, the economic structures. And that would continue to happen as it should. And it became limiting. Not dramatic, but enough where it was the light bulb, where I was like, if I really want to always control and determine my earning, I really can only do that by owning the process.
So we all know the value of mentorship. So who was the first person who really believed in you and opened a door?
I think because I grew up in the publishing world, it was a very women's world. I mean, you guys have seen every clip of a magazine, Condé Nast, InStyle. I mean, I only worked with women. It was like the total opposite of most people. And most were working women in the city, balancing children with little to no flexibility. And I watched all of them grind almost to the point of, I'm not even sure I want to have like a family, kids, and a career because I didn't see a balance around it. And then Goop was the same way. It was mostly women. But I've had Gina Sanders, who was incredible, Sandy Go Lincoln, Connie Ann Phillips, Karen Tracy, who now runs Meta basically for North America, retail, and probably 9 other categories. But I've had a lot of incredible women that guided me and really held my hand and helped me get there, whether or not they were mothers. And I've stayed in touch with everybody. Gwyneth was one of those people. I mean, I've worked with incredible women who were CEOs and mothers and found that balance even when it feels impossible.
That's actually our next question is around Goop and Gwyneth. So how did your time at Goop prepare you for what you're doing now?
I I think ultimately what I didn't know going in, which I learned there, and a lot of people say this about a startup, it really is your MBA. My boss, I had other women that served in leadership roles at Goop, but Gwyneth really was consistently with me for 5 years. We were learning together. And I think when you realize that, and I was building a division very much, if you build it, you can, or sorry, if you design it, you can build it, or if you build it, they will come. So building something like in Goop Health, it was create a business case of how this works, what the economics look like, and then go for it, monetize it, figure it out. And I had a lot of freedom to do that, which I think was where I got my entrepreneurial chops. And, I tell my kids now, I'm like, go someplace where you can learn and make a lot of mistakes under incredible leadership with a big IP, and then go and do it on your own. So I meet women now who are 25 who are freelancing, and I'm super supportive, but I'm like, I really think you need to be under those guardrails with incredible mentors before you take that leap. You will just have so much to learn and so many mistakes to make. So wait as long as you can before you're self-funding those mistakes.
That's super interesting. And I mean, Goop's the OG, what an incredible achievement.
I love hearing people name out loud the people who believed in them, and we all have those people, and I think it's great to say that. But I'd love to hear about even going before that, before your career started, your early childhood. How did you grow up thinking about money? What did you learn from your parents, either by example or indirectly? Love to learn more about that.
Well, super humble upbringing. My dad was an employee and then became an entrepreneur, worked really hard my whole life. My mom stayed home. Probably shouldn't have, looking back, and she'll say the same thing. We probably could have used her income. And then later, when I went to college, she became a teacher. She was certified and had taught before having kids. My dad, had ebbs and flows. Like, we had times where I thought we were, like, doing well. He had a good run, and then he would, like, kinda lose his shirt and really set us back. And he didn't mean to, I just think it was the way of his business. He was in the meat business. It was never a super lucrative business. He was a meat broker. Um, and then, probably my sophomore year in college, he really lost his shirt. And I remember thinking, I gotta get scholarship to college, like, no one's gonna take care of me. Just feeling like everything was really tight. And it's not like we ever had a windfall, but I remember thinking, wow, it's really, really bad right now. And that influenced my decision on where to go to college. And basically, Title IX was going through, which was giving more women scholarship. So I was a gymnast and a cheerleader. And so I knew there were a few colleges in the South that were offering scholarship. I went to look at Kentucky. Went to look at Louisville. I looked at Florida State. I just went on a few, like, kind of recruiting trips, even though it wasn't as formalized. And I ended up going to Louisville. They subsidized my tuition. They were also like national champions in cheer, that I was like, oh, this is a good intersection. I can do what I love, hopefully win a national championship, and then have really low cost living and tuition, which was important to my family. Um, and it's funny, I hear parents now, their kids really want to do what they love. And they're like, I want them to go to Boston College and my daughter wants to go to Tulane. I'm like, please let your child determine where to go. If they're going to be successful, they can be at a community college, no college, or the best college in the universe. It might be harder for them. There might be less doors opening for them, but it needs to always be their decision, their ambition, their fire in their belly. And I became really successful, nothing to do with where I went to school, really because I decided I was not gonna be poor. I think that was more. I had a scarcity mindset. I was always in fight or flight. I'm probably still in fight or flight. And I'm sorry this is long-winded, but I think that's what was my desire, and that's always been my determination and why I've outworked most people around me. Not because 'cause I'm smarter, but I've always worked harder. I put in the hours. I clawed my way to every job I ever got. I didn't know how to say Brunello Cucinelli, and I worked at Vogue. Like, those were just things, and I remember the women being like, "Do you not know AFA?" And, "You don't know you did you" and, like, these women grew up with their moms wearing that. I'm like, not only did I never hear of that brand a day in my life, I had to learn how to say it without the internet, or AI telling me how to say it. So, um, anyway, long-winded way of saying that I think my ambition is just rooted in my fear of not having money again.
You brought up a really interesting conversation that I think we're all having, especially with children, about college and what the future of higher education looks like. It's unreasonably expensive, and I would love to know what kind of messaging you have children, you're a mother, what kind of messaging are you giving or planning to give to your kids about higher education?
I tell my kids just to be the best at anything they're doing. Hairstylists, makeup artists, entrepreneur. If you are the best at what you are, you will be successful and money will come. And no one really ever shared that with me. I think, like, even in my 20s, I was like, oh, I should have been in investment banking or bigger transactions would have equaled bigger commission checks. And um, I didn't just focus on being like laser focused on doing what I love and being the best at it. For my kids, Apple Pay is so dangerous. They really don't have a sense of like cash and adding and subtracting and the deficit once you spend $100. So I only my son has a phone. I wait till I'm 13. So I only have one child who has a phone. And I ask him to do one thing for me every month. I say, I want at the end of the month a report on how much you spent and what the delta is against what you've been spent the month before. Super simple. And, the numbers are really clear. It's more familiarity that he's like, oh shit, I spent 200, I spent 150. And my kids don't spend a lot and they're not frivolous. But I think the context of that exercise, and I said the one month I don't get that at the end of the month, immediately no Apple Pay. Such a simple exercise. It's really bare minimum for me. And I don't push back on their spending. I hate the DoorDash and Postmates. It's the only thing that's like a thorn in my side. I just find it super excessive. But otherwise, my kids are really have a sense of money because I'm working and the breadwinner. They know how hard I work and they don't take advantage.
Some amazing advice there.
I also overshare everything. They ask how much I made this week. I mean, I don't share everything, but they really know that they're just watching me in motion. I work from home except for when I'm traveling. And so there's just a lot of openness around, I tell my kids, I hope you don't have a traditional job working, at the mall. I want you to manage a multifamily property and run a P&L and manage tenants. And that's how you pay yourself when you're in college. Now, granted, I'm not there yet, but that's what I'm working towards, like life skills that can be applied to income versus just, and listen, job is good for work ethic, but I think there's more that I can give them so they understand budget. And I do tell my children all the time, you will not be successful in anything you want to do unless you know how to manage a budget.
Can you talk a little bit more about the real estate investing?
Yes. So again, now you know that I don't come from a lot of money. I feel like the rich dad, poor dad, like I've really just read a lot in real estate. So from my early 20s, I didn't even do it as early as I could because I had this mindset you needed cash to invest in real estate. And now there's a lot of like LinkedIn warriors and TikTokers, and you can follow them all and you're like, okay, Chris Cohn or, Grant Cardone. I mean, but I did wait until I had cash. I think for me, I bought my first place, in my 30s. And then when I moved to LA, I rented that place and I thought I will never be able to buy a place. So I rented a place in LA while renting out my New York place. And then I saved and saved and saved, pretty religiously. I'm a good saver. And then finally I bought my first home in LA. And so then I had these two things. I would rent my house all the time. And I remember people in L being like, ew, it's kind of gross. You have people sleep in your sheets. I'm like, what do you think a hotel is? Yeah, I have people sleep in my sheets. If they're willing to pay. And so every summer I'd rent my house. And I got really comfortable with that short-term rentals and learning that market. And then when I sold my house in LA, I bought my first multifamily, a 3-unit. I didn't do short term, I just did long term, but I really got a sense of like how to manage, refinancing, how important your credit is. Um, can you leverage your portfolio? Turns out only if it's personal, not your business. Anyway, so now I have 14 properties. Some are short term, some are long, some are full year rentals. And I really wish I did it sooner. And I just want to say, like, take anything you had, borrow against your 401k. I think 401k is kind of bullshit, like locking yourself up till you're 70 when you have all these other means of creating income and cash flow. And I did invest a lot in the market, but I didn't cash flow out of it. It's compounded interest and it's great for long term wealth, but it actually doesn't subsidize your income. So I was looking, the real estate for me is a way of paying myself so that my business doesn't have to pay myself. Anyway, I'm probably like all over the place, but I could really get into this. So if you have any questions, like hit me and I'll help anybody. I'm really into it.
This is so valuable and exactly why we're doing this today.
And I buy distressed families. So basically like shithole rentals at the Jersey Shore, or I have one in Orange County where they're like slumlord style. And maybe one summer they had 42 kids renting it. And I come in and I clean it up. I buy all the furniture on Facebook Marketplace. I get a steal of a century. I lowball everything. I show up in these beautiful neighborhoods with my kids on Saturday morning, humbly dressed. And I think these women feel bad for me. And they're like, take the couch. They're just doing renovations. They're like, and take your lamps. I have 3 kids. I rent a van or a pickup truck. And you'd be shocked at how much you can acquire. I have this 3-unit. I filled the whole property for $6,000. Couches, gallery walls, lamps, beds. I do buy new mattresses for anyone who's ever rented. I'm kind of skeeved about the mattresses, but everything else I buy used. And I think it's a good time in our generation that like resale, there's just excessive everything. So it's amazing how quickly you can furnish. I'm doing a 5-unit now, and I love the creative energy that goes into the design. The rental shit I hate, like the people, but I think the whole creative is what I love. So it's a balancing act.
I also love that it's like a makeover. That's amazing. I also, going back to what you said just about like resale, definitely I've discovered Facebook Marketplace with my son who's 9-month-old. So like it's fascinating environment. But also going back to what you said about reselling in Finland, where I'm from, there's a company called Relove, which is essentially secondhand clothing, but they've made it nice, where there's a cute coffee shop and all the clothing is nice and obviously washed and steamed, and they basically have the racks where like, so say you as Kim would have your all the clothing you're selling in one rack. So I would know, so say maybe we're the same size and same style. So I would know that this is where I should be shopping. And I still think the secondhand, especially for clothing in the US, is more like mega designer, just designer handbags. And there really isn't like a cool brand. I know there's another brand, the name escapes me now in Europe, but love secondhand. And yeah, thanks for sharing that experience. It's amazing.
I basically what I'm saying is you can be overwhelmed quickly at the cost of furnishing a short-term rental. And there's these other solutions if you're creative and gritty. And like me, I love a deal. So I'm like Samson and Son on the weekends, which probably no one will understand that reference, but I could fill a pickup truck and I take it all and then I can clean it up and I can make it super chic. And I want to empower anyone who's listening to this. Don't get caught in something like, oh, but then I wouldn't have another 25 grand to furnish it. And you don't need that. You need to be creative. And I'm happy to help anybody. I'm very into like helping women and founders and entrepreneurs and maybe tiny organics. Eventually we have a little
Yes.
pop-up of some sort. Yeah.
Love it.
That's great. Can you tell us more about, so you're a mom. We love that your kids are joining you with the pickup truck to pick up all the furniture. Tell us more about how you are balancing your wealth building with your parenting. I love that it's incorporated together and your kids are actively included. But by being a parent, you necessarily have to make trade-offs or choices about risk analysis. Tell us more about how you come to those conclusions.
Yeah, it sucks. It really does. Like, it's really hard. So anyone who's like, "Oh, you gotta do this and that," I don't wanna be a weekend parent. I wanna be an active parent. And that's probably, like, my biggest struggle. One thing that's my husband stays home now and manages the rentals because 'cause we've built enough. Um, and so that is a big difference, like, knowing my kids come home to him or he can do pickup. It's still a lot of the mom energy. Like, I wanna say it's 100% delegated, but, I'm still wanting to be on the field trip or I wanna go to the soccer game, so it's not as easy. Um I I think it's a lot of communication and a lot of coordination. If anything, I think that's you have to really lay out the week and my assistant blocking out times and, finding out when the kindergarten graduation is, 6 months early so I can make sure I'm at can. There's just a lot that works. I wish I had like a formula that I could share. um, it, like, breaks my heart. Really, I hate missing things for my kids, and it's part of it's impossible to do it all. And I just try to manage what I'm missing and prioritize how important that is to my child and to me. Whether it's the mother-son dance, would never miss that. That's on the books a year out, and I'm the person writing the principal, like, I don't even know when parent-teacher conference is, but I wanna know when kindergarten graduation is and the middle school dance is a year out, or 7 months out. Um, and it's a lot. I really empathize for all women. And I have flexibility because I work from home, even though I travel a lot. But I think of the women who never had that came before us, that helped us get to where we are. And those women who worked at Goldman or even at Condé 5 days a week, they never got work from home on Friday. So I try to always think of that perspective. It's an evolution. And we're the 2.0, and I can't even imagine, hopefully 3.0 is like, wait, you'd go into a physical box to meet up and sit next to people? Like, that's crazy. What about your kids? Like, I hope it gets to that point. Um, but I think it's ebbs and strides, ebbs and flows, sorry.
Can you talk a little bit about what's your view on saving now that you have children? Whether if they
Oh,
want to go to college or maybe they don't, but how do you view that now?
Um, I think my biggest one of the things I did, and it wasn't as intentional as it's gonna sound now, is by the time your kids get to 5 in kinder, childcare is really expensive, but outside of that, it's kinda cheap. You can put them in classes, you don't need to put them in classes. Your daycare or your nanny's fixed, or maybe you have help, your family's helping you raise your children so you don't have that outside expense. What I have found, I have a son who will be 14, a 12-year-old, and a 5-year-old. It gets really expensive. Whether the school doesn't work and you decide you need to invest in a different type of school, tutors, camps or sleepaway camps, whatever you decide, traveling sports. So if you can be as focused with saving before they're 5 years old, that would be my greatest advice. I tried to put 50K in each account before they were 5, and my 13-year-old probably has like 175,000. I've never added another dollar. I was done at 5. My daughter probably has 150,000. My son's trailing a little bit behind, but he's just, he's only gonna be 6, but I'm working to get that last 50K in there, and it's hard, with the older 2 and all the expenses, but no one told me that. It's just something that I lived really tightly in a Dumbo, Brooklyn apartment, and my expenses didn't waver as I was raising children, so I was able to be really disciplined with my savings, and honestly, it's easier said than done, but if you can take that to heart and try to save as much as you can when they're little, I promise you they get a lot more expensive.
if your kids want to be entrepreneurs like you, following your path, will you invest in them?
Yeah, I think it would be just like how I'd invest in anything. Show me your business plan, show me the P&L, who's the operating team, what's the white space, I would make it, if anything, more difficult for them before writing that check. I'd probably diligence them harder than I do any of my angel checks because I'm like, she's so smart and everyone's doing it and I love them. Okay. I'm actually a very bad angel investor. That's why I've leaned into real estate. I'm very emotional. My kids, I would make them work for every dollar. I think if they got scholarships and they didn't need their 529Ks, which is the only accounts I'd put money into. And I think that putting put to work for them in a way that's smart or interesting could be an opportunity for them. But I still think, even if my kids are 23 and have the idea of a century, I still think I'd want them to work in an environment and learn working with people and bureaucracy, uh, and all the energy and communication required to get along with these knuckleheads, because that's a skill set you might learn a little bit in college. But like when you have an asshole boss that you got to deal with every day and a coworker who's a deadbeat, and then like an aggro female coworker who I worked with who's coming after you, like those are life skills. And I really think, like, I hope my kids do some sort of consulting or work at a startup and just deal with people beyond what they learned at college where they might have been coddled and there might have been guardrails. Like, go out. I still think I'd make them do at least 5 years in the real world. I think there's a lot that I couldn't teach them that they will learn by having a boss or an investor or coworkers that kind of suck or that are amazing and like become lifelong friends. I've had both experiences. And also, like live on your own a little bit. I don't want to fund a business and fund you. Like that doesn't feel good. And you have to find the balancing act of like living really tight. I'm definitely cutting my kids off.
This is, I think, what we all struggle with. That I grew up upper middle class in Finland, which here is not upper middle class. I don't think. Like, how do you you talked about this. How do you instill that same drive in your children? Say when they know that they have, I mean, you're doing it really well where, you know, you're showing them what hard work goes into what you're building right now. But that's, I think, the struggle that we all have. That we want to have generational wealth, but if the second generation has generational wealth, they might not be as ambitious as first generation.
Yeah. I think for me, I lived in LA. I did the private school thing. I had my dream home. Um, all great, but I think that's where I started to see a little shift in my kids. They were just around, and now I live at the Jersey Shore. I live in the cheapest house I own. I leverage debt to buy more properties. I live humble, and my kids know that we are comfortable per se, but I don't think they actually know where we sit, and I don't think they need to know that for a long time. So I think it's managing the oversharing, and yeah, so I think it's a balancing act, but I definitely think I reacted to seeing what I didn't like and what was starting to happen. And that just comes with exposure and it's going to come at some point. But I think right now I've recalibrated my family in a way that works best for us. And because of that, I'm able to rent my home in LA at a premium, use that capital to reinvest. And like, I think about it like, let them think we have money when we're at college or like when they graduate. I don't think they need that now.
You're like a one-woman powerhouse. It's
No,
incredible.
I'm
It really is.
I think I'm paranoid of my kids. And I think anyone with wealth is, and it's really hard to control. Because listen, do I want to live in the West Village in a townhouse? Hell yeah. Could I like sell a few things and make it all happen? Yes, but I think that needs to be part of my long-term journey, not my right now. I think my kids are in a good place. Yeah.
Your advice is so good. Can you give us more tactical strategies about your income generation? You have multiple streams of revenue. Can you tell us more about how you split those up, where you prioritize, any other strategies you use?
Yeah. Well, my agency business is my priority revenue stream for the family. We rep consumer brands. We're on retainer for the most part, outside of some projects tied to events or like bigger celebrity campaign work. But for the most part, I have a net retention revenue business, really easy to manage. I'm good at managing the revenue, so I manage the EBITDA well. And really, the long term is to have some sort of earnout, and get 50% of the value of the business up front and then earn the balance. And to me, that could be life changing because that's where I can buy apartment buildings, or it's not necessarily to take money off the table for me. It's really to do more and to do what I'm doing at a larger scale. Outside of that, I have long-term rentals and short-term rentals, and together that creates a good amount of income. And then outside of that, I have money in the market, which is just compounded interest. It's not something I like take out or leverage. And I'm actually a little like I could use more advice at this, but I don't like tying up all that money. I feel like I like make putting my money to work in a way that I can maybe it's more tangible or the creative aspect. Um, so I have a certain amount in that. I have the kids' 529s put away. What I haven't done, and I'm working on it this year, is a few things. I've been buying the properties under my name, or like some LLC. I need to clean that up so they're each their own LLC with their own P&L. That's a priority this year. I want to build trust for my kids. So do I take the income from some of those LLC and goes directly into one of the kids? Because you can pay your kids up to what, 14,000 a year. I haven't done that well, because I want to keep my books clean for exit. So, but that doesn't. I should be able to do all of this stuff, and I want to figure out how much more to put in the market until I'm like, what's that number that I'm comfortable? Like 5 million, 10 million, till I'm like, okay, that's earning X amount of year. I don't need to save more. I need to put my money to work more. But what I'm learning is the real estate is less about people wanting to be in real estate, but cost segregation and depreciation against your portfolio. Or for me, paying myself a humble salary, and then I have the rental income in the real estate that can offset my expenses for my family. So I use the money from the real estate to basically fund my family. So I don't need to make a lot of money in my business.
Very interesting.
It does well, and I manage the EBITDA well, but I think as a solo entrepreneur, or even what the business structure you all have, it's like, how do you use your business as kind of modest income, not priority income? And then I can do a self-employed 401k, which I do. I think I can do, I can do the max into that, and then I can do a profit sharing up to 40,000 a year on top of that. I try to look in all of this, and I think what doesn't exist for me is I have a wealth manager, but I don't have a real mentor of I've done an agency business, I've done real estate. How do I find women who have had similar structures? So we're you know what I learned before I exit, and here are all the things. And women just don't talk about money as much. We're not on the golf course, deal flow. I'm a proponent of really doing that. My dream is all my best friends and I have an LLC and we're all making money together. Or I can lift my friends up who are bartenders or teachers, and we all are getting, we're part of something much bigger together that they wouldn't have been able to put together structurally without me. And that's really what I want to do. But it's hard.
We talk about how exactly what you said. I think in every episode we say that women are at a disadvantage because we don't talk about money enough or nearly as much
Yeah.
as men, but also in school, the financial literacy classes. I mean, I
Yeah.
think they're pretty non-existent, or at least I know a lot
Yeah.
of people who are like, I wish, same for me. I come from a family of arts and academia, but I wish I would have invested in the stock market, even in Helsinki,
Yeah.
like it's a compounding
Yeah.
interest. I would be a much richer
Yeah.
person now and have more financial freedom. I think that's ultimately what we're all looking for.
I actually think right there, Sophie, it's okay, when do you want to have financial freedom? What does that look like to you? And then you build your portfolio backwards. Do you want to retire at 35, or do you envision yourself never retiring? Those are drastically different financial outlooks. And if someone said to me, I want to retire by 50, and then help me build the structure to do that, that would have been really meaningful. And I don't know who that person is. And what I find is the friction between my wealth manager, he's in the business of me putting more money in investments with him. And I want to take more money out into real estate because I can have, cash flow positive, I can have appreciation, and then I can also have cost segregation. Like I have three things I'm achieving beyond compound interest. And then, so we have different conflicting ideas on how to manage our wealth, right? Which is awkward. And then, yeah, so it's like it's hard to find someone like fiduciary who's looking across the whole portfolio and saying, let's put 60% in real estate based on your historicals. Let's do this. Um, and so all of these things require different skill sets and analysis. And I don't know the pot of people. And you know who do that well? Super, super wealthy. Like who has the best tax strategist? You know what? Those are expensive resources. I had like a cheap accountant for a long time and now I'm like leveling up and I'm like, shit, I never envisioned I'd spend 50,000 in accounting, but like you got to think that you're saving that and you got to get really smart. And I was always like, who has business managers for 2,500 a month just to pay their bills? That's all. But it's about the strategy component and trying to make that back plus.
From a societal perspective, that's challenging exactly because get richer, poor get poorer, don't have the resources. So, but yeah, thank you for sharing. Really interesting.
And I think the other factor is whether it's generational wealth, which has been managed by a team for decades, or it's your wealth. So it's like then I have to make the pool of people much smaller. I mean, I have friends who don't even know what their mortgage is. They're like, "You're so funny how you know all these numbers." I'm like, know them. I manage. I'm like, there's no one else who knows them. So it's like, it's anyway, making the pool smaller, like you're a breadwinner. You actually like manage it, you like managing it, and then you can engage in more conversation around it. There's almost like a filtering process beyond women with money. Well, how'd you accrue your, like it's a bunch of qualifying questions that we'd have to ask and then kind of bucket. You're entrepreneur, you like talking about money, you're good at money, you're one bucket. Your family office, you've inherited, you're managing a trust and cash flow or like distributions. It's very different K1s than, what an entrepreneur might be managing. Anyway, so I'm open to any resources for anyone who's listening.
I love it. Yeah, and you touched on something that also maybe women or people don't know and they don't ask the questions because maybe there's some shame in like, especially people who are earlier on in their careers, like maybe they don't know and they don't have the courage to ask.
Or they don't need to know, Sophia. They don't care and they don't need to know, but I am really against that. I think everybody needs to know.
Yes, yes. Um, okay, one more question in this section. So
Yeah.
you probably get a lot of inbound. So how do you evaluate whether to take on a consulting project, a board seat? We mentioned a couple of the boards that you're on, or an investment opportunity.
Yeah. Good question. I don't have that much bandwidth for anything non-paid. So I think, speaking of wealth, it's really evaluating time, resourcing, and like cost benefit. The board, like I haven't done any big board positions in public boards, and I'm working towards that. That's something really exciting, whether it's a nonprofit or nominal. I think I would do one of those to learn as like kind of future pathing. But for the most part, it really comes down to like, time and upside and value. Um, right now, my priority is like retainers and cash flow because that helps me hire great people, manage our business structure, and then work towards the end goal, which is an exit. So that's probably my number one priority. I think if I'm incubating a business and it helps me secure more equity, I just found equity is a lot, and you guys know this better. I think our generation, we did put ourselves on a lot of cap tables and do a lot of free consulting for the last 5 or 10 years. And then I think like a VC, we saw 1 out of 10 if we were lucky. And so I've gotten much more discerning on helping startups in exchange for equity. It really needs to be the right capital structure, the right operating team. They need to have almost infinite capital. These businesses just cost so much to build, way more than what you think it's going to cost. And it's Haley's Comet. So I think out of anything, I've deprioritized equity compensation unless it's like a hybrid of cash equity. But straight equity, I don't think I can do that.
Carolyn, what was the structure that a lot of companies now do for their employees? So instead of equity, I think, was it a bonus at exit or maybe same for advisors too and board members?
Right. There's some, like you're saying, equity is not always guaranteed. So if you're an employee and they're offering you equity at some over the stage of your career, there's might be occasions where you say, I'd rather just get a cash bonus at that time.
Yeah.
Depending on the stage in your career, it could be more lucrative than what the equity would be.
Yeah. And also, if you're having trouble paying your rent, you're like, I love the equity idea, but I need cash. Like, there's a real, like, I actually think any employer who actually offers that, it's great. It's good for them, to avoid dilution. And then it's great for the employee who needs cash.
So before we go to our lightning round, where the answers don't need to be lightning, I have one more question. I just thought about this. So you've worked with a lot of really well-known people. This is like, I'm just curious, how is that? And a lot of it from what I was saying earlier, like in your intro, a lot of amazing women in particular. How is working with a celebrity, if you will?
I think I'm glad I got into this business later. I was 35, 36 when I started with the Goop and then my own company, because to me, they're just female operators that are really trying to do what we're doing. Their, day job is acting. I don't muddle in that world. They have agents that know that world. I never try to step on toes. I have a clear lane. If it's commercial strategy and brand building, I might need to understand where their share of mind is and time commitment. But beyond that, they're just regular people that are, sometimes moms and sometimes actors and, they're recognizable. But for me, they're people. And I don't think of, not in a negative way, but I'm not like trying to be BFF and selfing. I just made my Instagram public. It was always private the whole time working at Goop and even after that. And I only did it because I didn't get an award for pivot projects from one of the whatever you apply for I don't know, one of the like awards for agencies. And what the feedback was, they really like a groundswell once they honor founders. That only happens on social. So I was like, "Oh, shit. I really didn't get that award because I had a private account." I didn't do a lot on Pivot's handle, so then that was a good moment for me. I went public. I'm trying to post less of my kids. I'm still not good at it. I really make sure Pivot Projects post a lot, so please follow if you're listening. I could use some love. Um, and so anyway, I don't leverage my own personal gain. That's what I'm trying to say. And I wasn't trying to build my own uh, my own public persona at the same time and ride their coattails. And I know a lot of people I worked with, that was a big part of it, the selfies and posting. And I think I always made people feel safe. That was never my priority.
Yeah, super, super interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
lightning round, couple of questions
Yep.
before we wrap up.
Oh, shit. Okay, here we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
first one is, what's one expense that's totally worth it to you? Like a daily habit, it could even be a little bit frivolous.
Upgrading to first or business. I'm kind of new to it. I was always, even my friends who have always traveled business, they're like, what the hell? You have plenty of money. I'm like, I can't do it. You land at the same time in the same place. And now I'm becoming like, shit, I really, really want to upgrade. And granted, I am a Diamond Delta, so I leverage that too. And I'm good with points. But yes, sorry, that was long.
I love that. Thank you.
Okay.
What was your very first job and how much money did you make?
Ooh. I would say like my first real job besides lifeguarding or Banana Republic Winter Help was American Cheerleader Magazine. And you know what? They offered me the job, I think, for 40,000. And then as a follow-up, I sent the president roses. I actually dropped them off and she pulled me into her office and lowered my salary. Because she was like, I don't know what you were thinking, but this is just very green. I would never forget that, and I went to, like, 37 or something. Maybe she wanted to do it anyway, but she didn't like that I, like, dropped off roses and wrote a card on the cheesy little card, and I don't know, she just judged me and she was kind of snobby and she lowered my salary. So 37, while living on the Upper East Side, paying $900 a month in rent. So I basically would shop at Ann Taylor Loft, then return my stuff on Friday to make sure my paycheck didn't clear, and then go back and have to buy it again on Saturday. Yeah.
That's a New York story. I love it. By the way, I would have
Yeah.
definitely kept your salary or made it higher.
Oh, she did not like it. She was very judgmental and she thought it was very weird. I was like, oh, I think because I bought them on the corner too. I probably could have like been a little chicer about the whole thing.
But hey, you took initiative, so counts for something.
I really was so grateful. It was my dream job working at American Cheerleader magazine. I was like, this is it. Nothing better.
Carolyn did cheerleading too. She's
Oh,
actually
fun.
from
Okay,
LA,
good.
so
We can talk cheer.
yes.
I'm into it.
I was a professional cheerleader while I got my first real job after I graduated college. I worked at Fiji Water, and I got my offer, and it was $33,000. And I had told my to-be boss, I was like, I'd have to commute from Orange County to LA. And I was living with my parents in Orange County, and he raised my offer to $35,000. And I was like,
Oh, at least you went
I'm
up,
so
not down. Wait, were you on California Were you California All-Stars?
I cheered for Chivas USA. It was a Major League Soccer team, now defunct. Yes. And I think ultimately I probably made $10 an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm into it.
I feel like the average of all the episodes so far that we've recorded, $10 has kind of been the average. A little more with some. Also, the roles you're talking about were after, like you said, the babysitting and all the other first roles or first jobs. So you mentioned Pivot Project. Where can people find you and follow you? So is it at Pivot Project?
At Pivot Projects, plural, yes. And yeah, anyone who's runs influencer marketing or CMO, we really lead with the kind of talent strategy, whether that's always on influencer, whether you need 50 or 100 a month or 2 or 3 big names. We do amazing creative briefing. We really manage the whole process. And then we either create the content for the talent or for your social. We turn that content over to the paid agencies. And success is really making sure our assets with talent are your top performing converting assets. That's truly like, you could talk about EMV, you could talk about engagement, but it's making sure we're driving revenue using those assets and mostly whitelisting. And then lastly, we do experiential because we find the talent will either host the event or everybody attending needs to have some sort of social clout. So procuring the guest list is a big part of it. But anyway, I'm honored. I'm really proud of you too.
Oh,
Like,
thank
I know
you.
this is about me, but you guys have done a lot. And I think the space you're in is really hard to create waves, and Frozen is really tough. And I'm proud of everything. And I've watched you for a long time, Sophia. So I'm really here to help. And even though I'm not doing that much unpaid, I got you.
Thank you, Kim. This was
Whatever you
fantastic.
need. Yeah.
Thank you. Like
Oh,
you
good. I
said,
hope I didn't overshare. I've never talked about money, and it's a big part of like what I care about. So thank you for giving women this outlet, and I'm excited to listen to your past episodes.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Kim.
Of course. Thank you.